Okay, or what would you like to address within the scope of this class in your field?
Well, my specialization is in adapted physical activity, so I guess something that I would like to address within the scope of this class is to get a more nuanced understanding of the barriers that care providers experience when trying to implement exercise with people with intellectual disabilities. And yeah.
Okay, and tell me, do you have any experience already in adapted exercise practices?
Yeah, so my experience with people with disabilities in particular is pretty long, I guess, in terms of my life experience, which isn't very long. Um, my first job, I worked at a summer camp as an educational assistant for a child with autism. From an early age, I went to a summer camp that really worked to promote inclusion and equity for people with disabilities, and I went there for 10 years, and it was a huge part of my life. And uh, I took a job when I moved to Victoria at Community Live in Victoria, and they house and support people with disabilities. So I bring a decent amount of experience working with people with disabilities, and not as much when it comes to adapted physical activity practices, but that's really why I'm here, to gain that understanding.
Okay, regarding your research,
Mhm.
do you plan on focusing on a particular specific disability?
Yeah, so my focus is on intellectual disabilities, which in itself is a bit more focused. So people within that realm include people with Down syndrome, people with learning disabilities, people with autism, Williams syndrome. Uh, yeah.
Do you plan on taking um, a specific subject in the area? For example, the learning disabilities or the Down syndrome, or
Yeah.
you are going to talk about and focus on
It,
in general?
it's difficult because when it comes to research in this area, it's difficult to find a large participant size. So because a lot of my specialization is dominated by quantitative research, like it means that you have to have a large sample. So it makes it easier for me when I go to do research because there's a larger population base that I can take from and learn from. And that being said, when it comes to qualitative research, I wouldn't have that issue. And if I were to specialize, I'd probably specialize in individuals with autism or Down syndrome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And why is it important to research this area? Why is it important to you in particular?
Yeah, so, well, I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's important to do this kind of research because these individuals are not exercising as often as their neurotypical counterparts, and obviously that opens them up to a lot of earlier negative health outcomes, hypertension, obesity, osteoporosis, type 2 diabetes. These all happen at an earlier onset for people with intellectual disabilities, despite the fact that it can be mitigated by exercise. And there is still that lack of participation. So, and I guess in terms of why it's important to me is really because of my experience of working with people with disabilities, and also because of my role models. I feel like they really help to shape my understanding of people with disabilities. And in early 2020, I lost a really good friend who was very special to me. And yeah, so this is really an homage to them. And they really worked to teach me about inclusivity for this group. And I'm really wanting to continue their work and really do some great things. So
Okay,
we'll see what happens.
great. What are you looking to gain or learn through this process of inquiry? Do you have a research question you are looking to ask?
Well, I think that in terms of what I'm looking to gain is just a more nuanced understanding of the experiences of the care providers in general, because in the research base already, we've identified that the care providers maybe lack knowledge and understanding of exercise. And and that it may impede them. We know what's happening, but we don't really know why it's happening. And that's really what I'm trying to gain from doing this branch of research, is gaining insight into questions like why something is happening and how something is happening, rather than what is happening, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, and in terms of a research question is, a research question that I would ask is, you know, how have the barriers that care providers experience in implementing exercise, how has it manifested in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and what exactly are those barriers, and which barriers are influencing exercise more than others? Just kind of taking the barriers that have been identified through descriptive studies, and gaining a more nuanced understanding, and potentially creating like a hierarchy those of those barriers, and seeing which kind of influence exercise participation the most.
When referring to your research area, or the adaptive exercise practices with people with disability,
Mm-hmm.
do you plan on working as well at the same time with the caregivers to see
Yeah.
what is happening about if they lack the knowledge? Is that really why the people are not getting enough exercise?
Exactly.
Or if they're not prepared, or is it simply because they are not
Interested.
interested or able to give the tools or resources to these type of people?
Exactly. And that's really what I'm trying to figure out, like, is it the fact that they don't really know how to exercise, or is there something kind of bigger at play? Like, what is actually, we know that there's barriers, but we don't know, like, we're not isolating for one barrier over another, and what that does is there's not really a wide understanding of what is the thing that's impeding exercise behavior. So I think that's really what I'm trying to figure out, and I think that also means that I have to work with caregivers, because ultimately they are a huge resource for the people that they work with, and they are likely to influence the exercise behaviors of their clients, and yeah.
Perhaps there's a big gap between what they are supposed to do and what they are hired to do,
Exactly.
so they don't maybe go further.
Absolutely. And when I came to the organization, I was thinking, okay, this is great. I'm excited that they preach that they provide holistic care, so they consider things outside of just the biophysical, like taking pills and taking
Day-to-day care.
yeah, and like considering the fact that these individuals also want to have some sort of community inclusion, and be provided with the opportunity to sample different things, right? And that really wasn't happening, especially when I was at community living, only because COVID-19 was kind of at the peak, and like it basically locked everybody down. That's a good looking dog.
Okay, who would you want to work with
Oh, sorry. Who would you like to work for the basis of
for the
this study?
basis of the study? I'm sorry.
Sorry, my writing
More
isn't
than
very
one
well.
group. I think I already got the answer. But
Yeah,
please.
right. Yeah, ultimately, I'd like to work with the care providers as well as the individuals themselves, because ultimately, the people that I've worked with, they need the support, and they can't do it alone, and they really need the help. So, yeah.
Okay, and how would you want to deliver the results of your research inquiry? To whom and why?
In terms of who I'd like to deliver it to, I think that back to those community organizations, so that they have kind of a more nuanced understanding of what is actually going on in terms of exercise, and just ensure that they have that knowledge. If they are looking to increase exercise in their organization, then they have kind of that information. I think that it'll also be really good to publish in a journal, in the form of a research paper, if I was looking to do that, because it hasn't really been tackled a whole lot from a qualitative standpoint. So yeah, I think producing it in the form of a research paper presentations to community organizations. Like, I think that is probably the way that I would disseminate this information. Cool.
That's it.
Cool. That was awesome.
Done.
Yeah. Do you mind if I take this?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So now what?
I don't
Where
know.
did he
Want to
go?
pause it?
Yeah.
Or we continue.
Where did he go?